You are now listening to CTR Media Network.
The family. CTR Media Network. Yeah. Best in the biz. Yeah. Join the team. CTR is who we are, the media network, that's the best by far. Whether you listen at your home, at your job, in your car, come get the information that's needed above par. Never lasting, motivational podcasting, giving you the answers to the questions that you're asking. Serious talks and topics, how to come up and profit, how to better yourself, your health is here, we got it. Reaching 350 million, they tuning in. We in 50 different countries, we all can. And like-minded, find your purpose and your assignment. Come get your fix, your feel, your mental alignment. Get active and speak to the masses. Build your influence all levels and all classes. Now you know you can monetize and grow. CTR Media Network. Start the show. CTR Media Network.
Welcome to CTR Media Network TV. We're going to dive deep today with a man whose journey will ignite your entrepreneurial fire. Roy Coughlan is a global entrepreneur, a podcast coach who went from being shy to winning speaking competitions, and from launching businesses starting at the age of 9 to now being a founder of over 20 companies across 5 countries. He's the powerhouse behind 6 top-ranking podcasts that's ranking in the top 5% globally. Roy is also the co-founder to BrainGym.Fitness and VA.World, where he empowers others to enhance their minds and scale their businesses. Get ready to unlock actionable insight on podcasting, scaling with virtual assistants, mindset mastery, and what it really takes to build a life of calm success in a chaotic world. Let's welcome to the show the podcast king himself, Roy Coughlan. Welcome to the show, Roy.
Thank you very much. And I was trying to stop jamming when I was listening to the music. I love the music on your intro.
Thank you. And actually, one of our podcasters is an artist. So we hired them to do our song for the show. It's all about working together and pulling out the talents of the people that's in your circle. So I was like, listen, can you do this? Yes. Okay, do it. And we'll play it. All right. So, Roy, I am so happy to have you here today because you are a man that can literally, we hear a lot of people say, I'm the podcast king, I'm a podcast queen, I'm a this and I'm a that. But listen, they don't always have the receipts to go along with it. So with that being said, you are a man at my own heart. I love podcasting and I love introducing people to this beautiful world of podcasts, especially entrepreneurs. But you have been able to build 6 podcasts that are all in the top 5%. So how was you able to do that?
Well, 4 actually got to the top 0.5%. They fluctuate in and out. I think it's more systems. There's a few things that I think help. One is the name of the show, because I have speaking podcast. So if people is doing a search, and I've speakingpodcast.com. I've learned Polish podcast. I've learned polishpodcast.com, meditationpodcast.org. So when people are doing a search, I definitely think that's an advantage because, people are, they're looking for something and there's a good chance I'll pop up there. The other thing is like in social media, when I'm kind of promoting it, a lot of times people will just blast out. Like, I'm impressed with the way you do things and all the different channels. Like, it's like I can learn from you, and I have to get you onto the Podfather, and you can share your skill set with the people that listen to that. But for say Facebook, the marketing, say the Polish one, what I do is I go into Polish groups. I'm in something like nearly 50 groups for the Polish one, and I'm in like foreigners in Poland, Polish in the UK, Polish in Ireland, Polish in Chicago, a lot of Polish in Chicago, and different parts of the world. So when I'm sharing it, they're with audiences that are actually interested in it. Whereas a lot of times people, what they do is they share it to, say, a podcasting group, And that's kind of like you go to a doctor's convention looking for patients, all doctors. And so it's the same kind of thing. They're all in there trying to sell, or, hey, listen to my podcast. No, it's the wrong place to be. And, people, they're doing it from the heart, and they're trying to get their show out there, and they think that's a good place to do it. So I've watched the marketing from the start and make sure that I try to, like say the Awakening, that's one, exposing fraud and corruption. I get into groups that kind of talk about that kind of thing, and they tend to share it then. They'll share it on WhatsApp groups, Telegram groups, because sometimes you can have censorship as well, depending on what you're talking about. I mean, obviously you've got, people that you've dealt with as well that might be touching on subjects like that, even though they're very important. But so you have to figure out different ways. So I've always kind of been creative with all the shows.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is indeed, and I agree with you. And we think alike, because so many people, when they think about marketing of the podcast, when they are a podcaster, they think, okay, I just need to drop my podcast in any place that will allow me to drop my link. And that is not a proper podcast strategy. You have to have a strategy, not just do things. And so, yes, you have to know your market, what type of content they like, and what are the odds that they are going to click through to listen and or share. And so we have certain groups that we do different things in as well, depending upon the content. So I 1000% agree with you. But what would you say, because both of us are in this podcast industry, what would you say would be one of the biggest myths that people have about podcasting that we need to stop right now? Because so many people because podcasting is so famous, I would say trending, quote with quotes now. So what is one of the biggest myths that you see being a podcast coach that people have about podcasting in itself?
I think they expect people to just come running, listening, and their expectation is that they get millions of listeners, because they're following a few different people that have massive audiences. And when you kind of know some of these people, a lot of them have massive teams. So they have a load of people putting bells and whistles and creating shorts that are really, interactive shorts, not just a short that's just playing. Hence why they're getting so much engagement, and they have big bucks to put it behind it. And someone comes in then and they're getting maybe say 20 views per episode, and they think they're a failure. And I set them up at the start. Like, if you go into a room and there's 20 people, you're happy. If you're doing a Toastmaster, not just Toastmasters, but anywhere, like if there's 20 people and they come back next week, you'd come back as well. You wouldn't say, oh, there's only 20 people. You'd be delighted. But because we're looking on the sheet and we see numbers, you think you're a failure. And just look at all of your analytics and just try to grow it and celebrate. So if you get a 5% increase on that, you get an extra 1, you go up to 21. Say, brilliant, it's going up, it's going in the right direction. And just do little things and track everything, and never go for the 1,000, because that's why a lot of people throw it in. Or what they do as well is they'll go to promoters. I mean, I don't know about you, but I get bombarded. I get hundreds of people going, I'll get you 2 gazillion downloads for whatever, I'll get you number 1 in this and that. And it's all lies. And they'll tell you, like, I know people that have done. There was one guy that I knew, he got I think it was 150,000 downloads, and he was on Podbean, so you can actually see the numbers on that. Some platforms you can't. And he was averaging maybe 15, and then it went up to the 150 and dropped back. Mm-hmm. So everyone would put money behind marketing, even if you got 10% of that eventually, that people come in and listen and they go, okay, not for me, but you got some, then everyone would invest. But unfortunately, they're all bots, they're all lies, and the same with YouTube. And this is a very important one. A lot of people make this mistake. When they're going to set up a YouTube channel, they go out and they start asking all their friends, subscribe, which I've done it myself. And it's something I've learned later on. Yeah, most of us do. The problem is, the way the algorithms work is it puts it out first to your subscribers when you put out something. And they're not your followers. They're not your true fans. And then YouTube or whatever platform you're on thinks this isn't very engaging. And then people don't get the numbers that they want. So you're better off building it slowly. And if you pay for views and downloads, because sometimes people do that to monetize, you're hurting yourself, and it will never move from there. So you have to just walk and just kind of be consistent and don't think, oh, because what happens is it'll trickle along and go up, and then eventually something will happen. Someone will give you a shout out. You get number one in some chart. Someone will say, best, like this has happened to me a few times with the crypto and the Polish, is a number one in out of 100. And I just share stuff like that. And that's what gives you a little spike, because people then out of curiosity will start doing it. So just to pay attention to, do searches where you're being mentioned, because they don't always mention you. They might just do it and you just come across, there's a few times I've come across stuff by accident. And when you see things like that, share it. The same with the chart. Before it used to be Chartable. Now I use pod status. So when I'm number one, not just number one in the country, but when I share that stuff. And then sometimes you put the flag as well. And just out of curiosity, because you could have a load of people that would actually be just friends with you. And then they just go, what? He's number one in my country? And then just listen. And then they become interested in what you're doing. They go, oh, I like his style. Whereas they never, you think you're friends. That's one thing, even with me. You think, like my brother was a couple of years before he started listening. I'm doing it since 2018. But now he listens to all of it, the Awakening one. He loves it. But it was like, I just assume my brother would listen, and you'd assume people would, but they don't. And that's okay. Don't force it down somebody, because you don't like it when someone is trying to force their business down your throat. And we just kind of get self-centered, and that we think that's the way it should be. But the reality is, just kind of grow it and try to reach the right people. And what happens is when they resonate and you've got true fans, then they'll share an episode that go, oh, Mary would really benefit from this episode. And that's how it starts growing, and you're just being consistent, and that definitely helps.
Yes, I would agree with you with the sentiment about the myth centered around podcasting is that as soon as you create, you launch, you put it out, they're gonna come. And that is not the case, okay? And you're right. When I first started all those years ago, the very first thing, you send it to your mom, your dad, your cousin, your friend, high school people, and they may subscribe, but they never go back. And people don't realize, like you said, that mess with the algorithm, because now they're looking at all these people came and subscribed, and now no one's watching. So this can't be good content. And it could be the complete opposite. Your content is amazing, but you just gave it to the wrong people that are not really interested. They are not emotionally attached to the content that you're creating. And so for me, I know that people tend to, they think podcasting is easy. They think it's very, very easy. And I would tell people, it is a job. When done right, it is a job. You got to be consistent, like Roy said. You have to show up. And another thing that you said that I feel like can help them with having the proper podcasting mindset as a podcaster is that you need to be as happy and as grateful for the 20 just as much as you will be happy if it was thousands of people. Because those 20 people of active engaging people versus having 1,000 people that don't do anything, 20 people is way better than 1,000 people who do nothing. And so congratulate yourself. Be proud of how far you're coming, and don't despise growing small, growing little by little. It took me a long time to get where I am at today, and I still have a long ways to go. And so Roy is exactly right. And I think we should just touch more on this mindset and how we need to transition. So when we see you now, Roy, you're speaking, you're very outgoing, and you're animated with your speak. I love seeing you speak because it's not too often you see people that use gestures, and I just love it. I just absolutely love it. And I'm like, okay, then do the gestures, Roy. But what they don't know is that you used to be shy. Or are you still shy, but you figured out a way to be able to speak, because now you're going into speaking competitions and then you're winning. And I can't imagine someone being impeccably shy going into a major speaking competition, winning, and now having not one, but 6 podcasts. So how are you able to do that?
So I suppose saying I'm shy would be an understatement. When I was younger, going into the shop, I would give my friend the money to buy the sweets because when I was 18, when I was a good boy, I didn't drink earlier. I waited in Ireland, like you're allowed to drink at 18. I know it's 21 in the States, but we were 18. I wouldn't go up to the bar. When it was my round, I'd give my friend the money. You know, sometimes there was 3 of us or whatever. I'd give the money to them. And even I studied construction economics and management, and I was running big jobs. And the one time I hated during the week was the meeting, because I'd have clients. I know we were doing Johnson & Johnson, big jobs. And I couldn't sleep the night before. I just hated it. And my voice would go. And what happened is I actually lost everything. I was doing a lot of real estate and everything. And I went to an event. And the event was, what's your quest? And I basically said, okay, I need to expose all this corruption and fraud, because I could see so much of it. But I said, because at the event there was brilliant speakers. I said, I need to overcome this. And I just made a decision. All right, I'm getting over this. So I went back and I said, I'm going to join Toastmasters. And I tell you how bad shyness now. When I went there, I had to bring friends with me because I couldn't go on my own. And I said, this is brilliant. They said, yeah, but it's not for us. And I wouldn't go back on my own. And the only reason that I joined Toastmasters is a new club opened. And I said, all right, everyone's going to be new. Went there. They said, do you want to sign up? Yeah. Do you want to do a speech next week? Yeah. And I basically kind of said yes from then on. And as you mentioned, I entered loads of competitions, both in Polish and in English, and got into the finals of 5 countries. I done an open TEDx. I done open comedy. And I was speaking at Mind Valley as well on the stage, and even no fair, kind of just, I was talking about podcasting. So it went from one extreme. And I've started looking at reading a lot of books on it. But what I tell people is we kind of have a crutch where we tell ourselves a story and we stick to that story, whether it's shy or I have this or I have that, and you can overcome it. And when you decide, hey, I want to do this, and if I can go from that level to that level, everyone can do it. So, and I think a lot of the time the fear is because we're afraid of making a fool of ourselves or not getting, and for me, it was always about the message of what I can do to serve the audience. And it's the same in the podcasting. And most people are that. They're not ego driven. It's all about what can I bring to the table. And once you're doing that, people will actually appreciate it. And not the fear, just get out, start doing it. I became a mentor. Like, people just kept asking me to be their mentor. I started, like, evaluations in a speech, you'd have to do it. And I was even shy to do that. I waited about 6 months for that one. But once I started doing it, I started loving it, because I was spotting everything. I'd spot someone's feet going like that. I just had the structure. And typical people would do they call it the hamburger effect, something nice, a bit of meat in the middle where you're giving a bit of criticism, and then the same. And I wouldn't. I just say it as it is. And people appreciate it, because I was never attacking anyone. I would just give them advice on how they'd structure, because sometimes people are trained. You stand this time of the stage, at the start of the speech, in the middle and the end. And people were just kind of copying a system instead of kind of touching in with them. So I was able to do that. And I think by evaluating people's speech, I was able to help myself. I've recorded all my speeches. I would look at it. And one of the things that I learned is sometimes you can watch yourself with no sound. And I mean, you said I'm animated. I mean, a cousin said to me, yeah, your podcast would be great. Would be great if you weren't moving your hands. And I said, well, I'm getting millions of downloads. So I said, it must be working. So you'll always have comments as well. But I think just don't ever fear anything. Just decide, how can I overcome this? I mean, in business and stuff, there's things like that you go, I don't like doing this, accounting or something like that. You can always get someone to do it, but you still need to understand it. Because in business, and that's in podcasting, because sometimes people make their business as a podcast. I mean, I've had a lot of court cases, and I think I understand legal better than a lot of solicitors, which most people would say, how is that possible? And the same in accounting. Like when I was doing accounting because I listened to your previous episode, and it was very good actually on the accounts for the States. But like with me, I had auditors and accountants, and what they said is, oh, you have a tax bill of this with the property I was doing from Poland. And I bought a book. I bought a book by a guy that used to work for the revenue commissioners. It was called Tax Magic. Read it from start to finish, made all the notes. I said, can I do this? Yeah, got a tax rebate. And from that moment, I realized don't ever, because we do that. And that's the same with the speaking of it. We always tend to just kind of pass it on. You have to know yourself. You have to understand it, and you have to look at things, because people, sometimes they just accept what someone sends to them it's not in their best interest. Your money is better in your pocket, and you have to learn how to keep that. And the same with the legal side of things, how to protect yourself as well.
You know what? Speaking of money, I want to know, how did you go from rich to personally liable for $5 million? Because you mentioned that, and I'm like, what? Like, how in the world is that possible?
Yeah, well, I kind of asked myself that as well. You know, I wasn't expecting that to happen. So when I moved to Poland, I had a lot of different investors for syndicates I put together, and I was like the small boy. I had about I had 3 houses in Ireland at that stage, and I released equity to buy into some of the stuff. So when I was putting packages together, like we'd done a development to build 30 apartments, houses, and commercial property, but when I was putting my own money in, they were all happy coming in. Whereas if I was trying to sell something that I wasn't putting money in, it was a lot harder. So I kind of realized, okay, and some of them were worth 20, 30 million euro. And everything was going grand. I had 14 people working for me at one stage. I was doing a lot of renovations. I was managing maybe 200 apartments and some commercial. And when the crash happened, it took a bit longer to come across the waters, and they started getting in trouble in Ireland. And I was doing well still. So I started putting in additional money into, say, the commercial, thinking that it would come right. And I said, look, I'll charge you 10% interest a year. And if you can't pay it, then I'll just increase my share. They were all happy because I wanted to be fair with them. I don't kick people when they're done, when they had faith in me. And they didn't get it right. Like, they took, their businesses and everything. They lost everything. And eventually everything that I started running out of money, and I went to the banks, and my properties in Ireland, they were cash positive because they were interest only. They changed it to repayments. And I said, hey, I can't do this. And it went from making about 500 per property to costing over 1,000. And I was like, I knew I was in trouble then. And the same with the properties in Poland. But what happened is I had a lot of different companies. I didn't put everything into one company. I had a lot of companies, and I was the president, and nobody told me, accountants or solicitors, that in Poland, you're personally liable. And most time when it's a limited liability, it's like, lessons learned, let's start again. But it was like, no. And everybody just kind of ran for the hill. Nobody was there to help me. And I had to figure this out myself. So that's how I went through and I got things right. It took a few years, but that was kind of my passion then, from seeing all the corruption. And as in, like, I saw valuers working with the bailiffs, degrading a property. Like, the valuation was saying how bad a property was. I've never in my life seen something like that. That's not how a valuation works. It just states the property. And another time, bailiffs, like the auction, they were bribing people in the room so they'd buy it themselves, their own cronies to buy it. And I saw that's happening internationally. I thought this was just a Polish thing, and I saw it happening in Ireland because I'm, paying attention to everything going on in the world. And this is an international thing. So that was kind of, after going through the turmoil, overcoming it, then seeing, hey, how can I help people? Because so many marriages are broke up, people lose their houses, and when they don't know, then they're personally liable forever, where anything they earn, they're allowed to keep a measly sum, and it's just taken from their account. And, nobody should have to go through that when the whole lot is orchestrated. So when you see what's going on, you see that the whole funding was done. It was like they were lending money to everybody, then they just turned off the tap. So, and then
well, thank you for being so transparent, because you are let me make sure that everybody understands that's watching that Roy is a very successful man. But with all success, we have those moments where, whether you're a podcaster, whether you're an entrepreneur, that you learn lessons that actually, when you come through, like you say, you overcame this, it actually helped you be able to be stronger, be able to have more resilience, and be able to have that eye to know, okay, I know not to do this again, and trust and believe. I have had those moments where that's a whole other show. So I have had those as well. And so this is why he's so successful, because we can read books, which he reads a lot, like 100 books. And we're going to talk about that. He reads books, or a lot of books, but it's different when you have the experience, when you deal with the experience of it all. And so he is a well-rounded person with experience and the education side. So I feel like dealing with podcasting, dealing with entrepreneurship, because you literally started your first business at age 9. You have had the opportunity to have founding like 20 businesses. And so you definitely know what you're doing. you had to learn some hard things, but you know what you're doing. And so what made you say, I'm going to read 100 books a year? What type of mindset you had to come in? Because we think we're doing good if we read 10 books a year, like and say 25. I read 25 books, and then you coming along talking about 100. So what made you decide that with your business schedule, podcasting, running businesses and all of that you was going to read 100 books? And why should we start thinking on that mindset level as well?
I was always kind of an avid reader, but kind of not at that level. And then I just, at one stage, it was kind of like a challenge to myself, because I saw sometimes, hey, I can read 3 books. And if I'm really enjoying it, and what I found is, instead of just having one book, I can have about 4 or 5 books on the go. So you can read a chapter, then go on to another book. And then we don't get tired, because that's what most people do. They'll stick to a book, and then they'll get, I'm kind of sick of this, and they leave it on the shelf, and then they might force themselves. And the other thing is, like, if you're reading a book and you're not getting much out of it, don't be afraid to put it down and just say, yeah, not for me. And, even at one stage, it was kind of like the one thing I like to try to get minimalistic and get rid of things, but the books I never want to get rid of. And I'm even starting to do that. If I'm reading a book and I'm going, hey, I'm not going to read this again, put it into the box that's at the front of the house, and anyone that comes in, hey, take a book. And I'm just happy somebody will find something that's for them. And sometimes I listen to audiobooks as well. That would be part of that. But what I find is I prefer the physical book, because even a lot of times, even podcasts, a lot of people say, hey, here's the PDF. Can't read the PDF. It just, I might look at it and say, I've done a few, but it's like, 1, I don't make notes from it. 2, I'm reading it, and then the computer resets itself, and then I just totally forget about it. So PDF books don't work. Plus, I'm trying to stay away from technology. So having a physical book, when the weather's nice, I'm out in the garden, I'm just reading there, enjoying the rays of the sun, and I'm happy out. And it's like, I'm not saying to everybody, hey, you should read a load of books, because I love it and I enjoy it. And then it helps me with my conversations, because I've got so many different podcasts. And by me reading, then I'm able to engage or make a comment based on what I've read. And just because a book is there doesn't mean it's necessarily true. So then what I do is I go, this is interesting. And then I might get 5 books based on the same kind of thing, but from different people, different years, just to try to put 2 and 2 together. And sometimes you get different information, but you'll be able to figure it out. And also, I've got a lot of good friends, or even I've get someone on the show, and people send me books now, which is a lot of the times I wouldn't have read this book, but because the person's coming on, I have it on my phone. If you're promoting the book, send me the book. I used to buy it, and I said, why am I paying for books? I'm promoting you. You send me the book, and they're happy to do it. But I'm reading books that I would never have bought, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And I have the meditation one as well. So there's a lot of stuff on breath work, mindset, and things like that I enjoy, that I apply to my life. And even with people coming on, by me reading the book, sometimes it's on health and everything, and I benefit then from that I go, oh, I didn't know that. I'm just kind of learning the whole time, and continuous learning. So whether it's podcast, I listen to a lot of podcasts as well, so it's not necessarily, hey, go away and read 100 books, but find some way of kind of increasing your knowledge, because it helps you. Even if you're just having friends, going for a drink with your friends, you can have a nice conversation based on what you've just read or listened to.
You are so right, Roy. And we're going to go back to podcasting for a little bit. One thing dealing with podcasting that I see is a problem is, once your podcasts do start to grow, you start getting more inquiries for people reaching out to your business or to be interviewed, or you start getting all these other inquiries, various different things dealing with the podcast. So for me, I see that you talk about virtual assistants and how they can help you grow your business, but let's talk about how it also can help you grow your podcast. When you get to that point where you're like, okay, I'm getting too many inquiries, I can't really handle this. How can a virtual assistant make that easier?
Well, a lot of the time, say the shorts is brilliant, because I'll explain how I'm doing it, and maybe why I put this company together is, I've tried, say, Fiverr and Upwork, and sometimes you'd be kind of researching, checking reviews, and you go, oh, this is great. And after a week or a month, it's like, I'm chasing them, I'm watching them and saying what's going on. Upwork, they're giving you screenshots. And at the start, looks great. Hey, this is good. They're posting it everywhere. And then you're kind of going through all the screenshots and you're like, they're on Facebook all the time on my channel, but I can't see any kind of engagement or whatever. And I'm convinced that, unfortunately, a lot of them have a separate computer. And with the system that it does screenshots every 10 minutes, they just have it open. So, and you're still paying for it because you just assume that they're working for you. So it wasn't working. It's like, I'm not getting this. So with a virtual assistant, the way I edit all my shows myself. And the reason that I do that is because of my kind of knowledge and the conversations. If I pass that off to somebody else, they would know a good show point that would be something for a good short. They just use their own knowledge and they could miss the best thing. So it's like I enjoyed this conversation with you, but I will listen to it again when it's released, because then I'm like the fly on the wall going, oh, I'm enjoying this. And I always do that. And it's the same for, so what I say is I write down all the different show notes, as in like the timestamps of the thing. And I have the team then that they use ClickGrab. So I try to compress everything, not to make sure that there's error and everything. So they can just take the file once they know it's uploaded on YouTube, then have all the points, then they create the shorts, then they post it on Facebook and all the different groups and everything. And the way that we do it is we have the website on the shorts. A lot of people, they just put up the shorts with the text. And it's like, you can go in and post the link, but unfortunately, a lot of the social media penalize you for doing that because they don't want you to leave their social media. But if you've got a picture with, the podfather.me or whatever it is, then people that are interested in the short can find you easy. And sometimes you can go in and put the comment and do that. But so a virtual assistant is actually very good for that, or doing the calendar or even website stuff. And the way we kind of do it is, instead of, we can do hourly rates and stuff like that, but we have a conversation. What do you need? And we do packages. And we do packages for $99 because what we want is we want people to be able to afford it and come in and go, oh, this is actually benefiting me. And that's happened a few times that people come in and then they just increase it because they realize, oh, this is good. I can do more posts. I can do different things, posting on Instagram, LinkedIn and stuff like that. So we're kind of breaking the way most people work, like hourly rate, because then it's on us. So if you say, hey, we're hiring you to do this, straight away it's done or it's not. And then you have a call and you've somebody overseeing it, making sure there's no typo errors or stuff like that, because, and we tend to not lose people. When they come in, they realize the benefit and how they can get customers from it.
So did I hear you correctly that you said your packages start at $99 for virtual assistants? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah.
Wow. Wait a minute. I got to stop. You guys, I'm talking to all of you out there that's looking, watching, and listening. Okay. Virtual assistants don't start at $99 to do what he just said to start you out. Really, they can run you with something with a comma easily, like $900, $1,500, $3,000 or more per month to have people even start the management phase of what a VA or what he just described. And so I need you guys to tell them what the name of your virtual assistant business is so they can go to it, because that is a game changer. Cost-effective premium services at a fraction of the cost, but not taking away the premium of it. Like, okay, tell them the website. You just got me excited.
It's va.world. So it's an easy one. va.world.
Wow. You guys, I know you guys been reaching in and asking me about VA. I'm like, that's not what I do. We don't have VAs. So, wow. Okay. So that in itself is amazing. I also wanted to, you have another business that you actually talk about, because we're talking about podcasting, we're talking about entrepreneurship, but people might not know that you're also a podcast coach as well. So with your coaching, how do you help your customers or your clients? Because we have so many different things that we do as podcasters. So what do you coach about, Coach?
Well, I do two types. I do kind of existing podcasters, and then I do people starting. And I kind of do that differently as well, because sometimes people, when they're coaching, they'll go through kind of like a process. But I'm kind of seeing their style and their personality. So some people are like, okay, let's go. And I'm okay to do that. I'm able to do a lot more. And some people, they really want everything to be perfect. They want to get the logo really right and take a week to do it. And that's okay as well. And what I do is I give people my number, my WhatsApp, because what happens when you're podcasting, something will come up and then you like, oh, what do I do? And you don't want to wait till next week. And I'm just a call away. Like they just send a voice message. I rather voice than a chat. Sometimes they write, but I just leave a voice. It's very easy to do, and I love it. But they really benefit from that because they'll say, "Oh, a person wants to share. They want their file." Like that was one of them. I would say somebody wants to do a presentation, but they want me to do the presentation that I'm going through it, and they're asking me things like that. And I'd advise them not that you give them the sharing screen, that they do it, because what happens is they'll be telling you next, and it's not very good for someone listening. And there's a few things like that, and they really appreciate doing that. So most people, when they're coaching, it's like they come in at a certain time, whereas I'm looking at everything and trying to make them successful. And even with existing ones, I'll go in and listen, and I like there's times I totally change everything. Like I'll a logo and I'll explain something and I'll explain intro, and they'll start jumping up the charts. They start getting into the top 5% and start doing all this, and they're like they're delighted. And it's simple things, and it's just being consistent and like putting it out as well. I mean, I'm guilty of that with some of them, but like when you put out a show and it's like the ones I listen to, for example, there's one I listen to, Blind Boy. He's an Irish guy. It's just audio only, but every Wednesday morning is there. And a lot of people forget that people start looking forward to a show. And I starting to do it now with the Awake Night. One goes out every Monday, but there's other ones there's some that just go out when I get time and put it out. And then like that's not with me, but everyone that I'm talking to, like when you've got one show or whatever, you decide you're doing 1 or you're doing 2 or 3 episodes a week, whatever it is, and be consistent with it. Because the listeners will be waiting for it. And if you're haphazard and wanting not to do, which I did at the start, when I know it was at the second year with the speaking, I decided I'd take Christmas kind of off. And Christmas kind of, extended till maybe February. And I didn't tell nobody what I was doing. And it dropped a lot. It was like, they probably thought, oh, he's thrown in the towel. He's no longer podcasting or whatever. So if you're doing it seasonally, that's okay, but tell your listeners exactly what's happening. Hey, we're finishing up in November. We'll be back in March, whatever you're doing. And that's okay. They won't delete it from their phone if they really love your show. But if you don't say nothing, it's gone. So make sure they know. And that's what I think is a very important point, is have your episodes come out exactly the same day.
Yes. Consistency, because think about all TV shows or different things that we watch consistently or listen to consistently. It's because they have developed a pattern. And in order for us to get used to the habit of, you have to give us the format so we can keep coming back. And so that is so true. And also what you just said with open communication, and also explaining your podcast coaching style is more customized to the unique podcaster, their journey, and how they want their content to kind of flow. And you listen and watch them and their patterns, their habits, in order to make a customizable call to action for that particular person. So you don't have a one-stop shop, a turnkey kind of situation. You have that, okay, come here and I'm going to watch. I'm going to see what you say you want. And then I'm going to watch what you do. And then we're going to come up with an action plan. So I like that. I'm a blend. I can give, like you said, me and you both, we're the same. I can do straightforward checklists, but I prefer customizing it to each person because it's more personable. And I see that those podcasters tend to grow more rapidly. They tend to do better because of the customization, and it transitioned over to the audience. That's what I found, but it just takes more time though. It takes way more time than just giving people just a checklist or whatever like that. But yeah, I love the way that you do that as well. So one thing that you mentioned before we go, we live in a very chaotic world today. Very, very chaotic, very, very noisy, a lot of things going on all around the world. So you speak about learning about sovereignty and how that has helped you be calm. So what is that, and how can someone that just watching that may not understand your particular concept, but they can start with like one tip to kind of like find their calm?
Well, the sovereignty came about when I've had over 100 court cases, and even at one stage I had a criminal case against me fraudulently, and they were trying to give me 3 years, and I thankfully won, but it just kind of came down to like the courtroom and the judge. I said my life could be totally different, which I didn't like, and I started kind of reading a lot of books, over 20 books on UCC, common law, and sovereignty, and getting a lot of guests on and that. And I started using letters based on what I've learned and realizing the power that I've got, and also in the signature. So, for example, in Poland, you've got like the jaywalking, they call it, and I know in the States they do that as well. And I get that if you're walking out and the car has to jam on the brakes. But when there's no car coming, I don't believe that a man or a woman should stand there for 5 minutes till the lights go green. And then the police will come along, and all you say is, who's the injured party?
Yeah.
And it's simple as that. And the other thing is, they'll always get you to sign it. They get you to sign it because you're then agreeing to what they've just done. And then you don't sign it. You don't sign anything. You realize the power. And I've kind of, like, there's a lot of things that I've done. I've got them to back off. And I mean, I've screamed at judges and they put their head down and nod, which most people would think you can't do. I've screamed at police officers. I don't fear them, and I'm not abusive. I'm just saying, I know you're corrupt, and it's a different kettle of fish. So don't give them the power. Like, they want the respect, they want you to bow. But when you know that they're actually fraudulent, look them straight in the eyes and say it as it is, and they'll start buckling. And then you realize the power that you've got, and just signing your name and just understanding everything. Like, when you hit 50 in Ireland, you can get your pension.
Really?
Yeah, well, if you want, and I did, because I was watching, and it was like, because it was always full contribution from the company that did it. I never put anything when I moved to Poland. But like, what happens is you can get 25% tax free, but then they tax me 50% on the rest. And I was like, yeah. So I had a bond and a pension, and with my system, I had a bond for the first one. It wasn't massive money. Like, it was 17 grand with one, and the other total was like 50 grand. But when they tax so much on that, and I got every penny back based on my knowledge. And like, an accountant wouldn't be able to do that. Like, even my accountant here, because I was actually getting a phone, he was like, that's not going to work. And I said, we'll see. And I got every penny back. So it's like, when you learn your rights properly, because we were born free people, and yet there's powers that be that control us and make us just, I mean, if you look at society, we're all working way harder for less, and the roads aren't right, the council aren't right, all the taxes, and there's ways around everything. But you have to go away, and instead of hoping someone does it, just start reading a few books on it and go, ooh, and then you start following a few people, and you just learn a few things. You don't have to kind of do it all at once, just one step at a time. And I think that's the most important thing I've ever learned, is understanding the power of the signature.
That sounds like a book itself. Understand the power of the signature. Okay, so I never really thought about that. So now you have me curious, and I'm going to start looking into more stuff. That's why I love interviewing different people, because your perspective, your way of shifting the information and knowledge in a way that make you say, wait a minute, I need to look into this. And so I can really see how the 100 books have really helped to shape your mind. I really see that you are a person that is driven, that when you don't know something, you go seek books and examples to figure it out. You're not waiting for someone to hand it to you. And so I feel like from this interview, what I got is, you guys, you gotta be self-starters. You have to be self-starters. If you don't know anything on a certain topic, you need to start reaching out, find the books. And I agree with you dealing with the books when you were saying, like, you like to have a physical book in this digital world. And I have so many books. I call it my digital library, because I was about to run myself out my own home because I had so many books. But I tell you what, Roy, I agree with you. It's something about the physical book, holding it in your hand, that permeates your mind and moves you to action like no digital PDF or ebook can do. And so I encourage you guys to go back to the old way, get that pen, pencil, notebook, and a book and start reading. So Roy, what I would like to do right now, is there anything else you would like to say to maybe a podcaster or an entrepreneur with your vast amount of knowledge that you would like to share or leave with them? And make sure to tell them how they can find you on social media or wherever you want them to go in order to connect with you.
So what I would say is, like, a lot of times as people know, they're kind of complaining about everything that's going on. They're worried about everything. If you've got a skill set that can make change in the world, you don't have to hit millions. You can hit a few, because there's a ripple effect. You'll change everybody in that household plus future generations. Just do it. It's not hard. You don't have to be technical. I'm not saying that you have to come to me. You can actually go in. There's videos out there. You can do free as well. And it is easy to do. And if you can actually share something that will benefit people, whether it's mental health, whatever the skill set it is, just do it. Don't fear it. Don't think it's difficult. It is not. I'm not a technical person. It is very easy. You have a mic, plug a USB mic into the thing, just press record, do Zoom, have a little lighting, and it's all easy to do. It's very easy to upload and everything. Plenty of videos out there. I even have some free videos as well that I give just to help people, because I'm conscious of everyone's budget. So just, if you have a message, just do it. That's what I would say. And the other thing is regarding the books, like 100%, because I go into the creative mind when I'm reading. I never, ever do that with an audio or digital, because what happens with the audio, normally you could be driving or whatever, and then something you're watching to make sure you don't crash or whatever, and you don't rewind the audio book. You just, when I finish this book, and you just keep going. So it's not good. But also with notes, and a lot of times people are typing and everything. What I would say is use your hand, the pen, because the nerve endings, and when you're writing, even my daily action list, I use the pen, because you start thinking, you start getting creative. Whereas you're typing, there's no engagement with that. With the pen, there's movement. And I would say, highly encourage pen and paper is the way to go. Old school.
Hey, I agree with you on that. Well, Roy, I would like to thank you for coming on today, being a featured guest, sharing your insight, not only on entrepreneurship, but podcasting, and also your personal experience in life that actually taught you many teachable lessons that also laid the foundation to all the success that you have in the podcast industry, as well as entrepreneurship. And I did not say this before, but I want to say this before we end. I want to thank you for your humanity, okay? Because throughout this entire interview, I'm hearing you speaking about the injustice, or the reason why I did this is because I learned, and I don't want people to have to suffer or deal with what I dealt with. I want them to understand the power that they have in their hands. I want them to understand the power of their signature. They need to understand the sovereignty and the law. So thank you so much for not losing yourself in the midst of growing in millions and millions of dollars and losing the humanity that makes us human. I see that although you have 20 businesses and all this different stuff that you do amazing, you have still managed to keep your core, which is humanity. So thank you for what you do. I appreciate it. And I am now getting ready to be a subscriber to anything Roy. Anything Roy. So thank you so much for being on our show on today.
Thank you very much for having me. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yes. Okay, you guys, just as always, make sure to like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. We get all of your lovely emails, but we want you to start building and learning from these individuals. Just don't watch us on CTR Media Network. I encourage you to also follow each and every one of our guests so that you can be in their virtual economies, because they're going to be sharing stuff with their own communities that we're not going to have. And so you want to make sure that you connect with all of our fantastic guests that we have here on CTR Media Network TV, as well as all the other podcasters that you will see on our platform. We have podcasters and also TV hosts. So make sure to connect with them, follow them, and connect with them and their fantastic guests. On that note, you guys, we have just got finished having an amazing discussion with the epic Roy, where he went from shy to the spotlight, secrets to podcast and entrepreneurship and empowered growth. This was a very powerful episode, and make sure to download our app today so that you can watch all of this episode again and again, as well as all of our other episodes from not just our show, but all of our podcasters. On that note, you guys have a great, amazing rest of your day. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place. Talk to you later. Bye. Have you heard about Book Authority's best new podcasting book winner, which is Dr. Tina J. Ramsay, for her book, The Power of Podcasting, Unlocking Tips and Strategies for Podcasting Success. This book is your podcasting coach in a book. She is sharing so many strategies. This book reached #1 twice on Amazon for new release and best-selling book. So go ahead to CTRMediaNetwork.com to purchase your copy today, or simply place your order on Amazon.com today and unleash the power of podcasting. CTR Media Network is now accepting new podcasters to join our growing network that's reaching 350 million global listeners. Have you heard? CTR Media Network offers podcast production, podcast training, distribution, and product placement. Book us for your next event or schedule an interview with CTR Media Network podcasters today. To learn more, go to ctrmedianetwork.com.